All right. Welcome, Dvar Malchus class. All right. This is the second class in this particular sikha, this particular talk that Rebbe gave in Parshas Achrei, Kedoshim, Tafshin Nun Aleph. Fascinating, fundamental, very, very, very important for us to be able to appreciate and understand the whole concept of Moshiach the Geula. Small little kitzer. I mean, last week I know there was all kinds of obstacles that prevented the recording from happening. We're also back on YouTube. I hope, with Hashem's help, it should be good. For those who don't want to just listen but want to watch, you can go on to Maayon Yisroel's YouTube. Best if you subscribe so you can get you'll get an update whenever there's a new class. Not just these classes, but a lot of other classes. An interesting class I gave this week, I'll actually give a little plug for it. I gave a class, supposed to be the Monday class, Parsha of My Life. It was given actually on Tuesday. It was given Monday, but it didn't record. But Tuesday I redid it. It's called God's Soiled Clothing. And it's an interesting take on a lot of things that are happening these days. And I think it's insightful. I hope so. So good class to listen to before Shabbos. In any case, back to where we're holding. So last week the Rebbe in this talk is addressing the concept of Geula. And he says that why is it that the word Geula, which means redemption, is the same word as the word Goyla, which means exile. How can it be that two things that are so opposite and antithetical to each other share the same name? And he explains that unlike what some people think, that Geula is a total new reality, and like the old world suddenly disappears and a whole new world hits us, and then it can be quite intimidating. It can be worrisome. As much as we're wishing for better times, we don't want to lose our identity, who we are and what we are, and completely, forget our old existence. If I was to come over to someone and say to you, I can give you a lot of money and I can give you a lot of this and a lot of that, but you're going to forget your name, you can forget who you are and what you are, you're going to become a new human being. I don't think any of us will want it. We want to be ourselves, and in ourselves, which we are, we would like to have a happier existence. So the Rebbe says that that's very important to appreciate, that Geula is not an escape from the previous world. Geula is actually the word Goyla with an aleph. And what that means is that the primary word is Goyla, which means everything that you have in your galostic world, whatever makes up our identity now, which includes our physical existence, our body, and our body as we know it, meaning as it is, as physical as it is, and physical humans as our Mashiach comes, we're not going to wake up and suddenly be angels. We're going to be who we are, and we're going to continue having the friends that we've had. Of course, we're going to find many new friends, but we're going to continue having the friends that we have, the family that we have, the people that we know, the possessions that we own, the stuff that we like, all the things that are positive and good, and that we like them, and make up our reality right now, are going to be transported with us into the Mashiach world. The only change that's going to happen, so what is so different about Mashiach? We know that when Mashiach will come, will be a dramatic change. The difference is that we're going to experience them to their fullest, because we're going to connect to the divine dimension of everything. The idea is that how do you make from Geula by bringing in the Aleph? Aleph is Alufay Shaloilam. Aleph is the nucleus, the source, the truth of every existence is the Aleph, is the Eibush there. So if you can understand your life with the divine dimension, it's almost like now you see yourself you're only seeing a little bit of yourself. Maybe you're seeing only 2% of who you really are, of your true talents and abilities and content and purpose and what's the true significance of your existence. Imagine, what do we know about ourselves? We try to have some confidence today and believe that we make a difference, and yet so many times we get depressed and down, and we feel like we're worthless. What are we doing here? What have we accomplished? And so on and so forth. But imagine if we can know what our Creator thinks of us and when He created us, and how excited He was when He decided to make this incredible invention called Shmuli or Chani or whoever. Every person, each and every one of us, the Eibishter decided to put this particular person in, which is us. How much content and meaning and depth was there to that? All that is hidden and concealed, and we're not tapping into. And as a result of that, of course, we hardly tap in. If we would know that God said, I'm creating a genius, and an incredible genius that has, then we would be so much more inclined to pump our brains and our innovation and our creativity and our abilities like 1,000 times more than we're doing now, because we don't really appreciate who we are and what we are, what our talents are, what our abilities are. And the same goes to our friends. How would we appreciate other people? How would we appreciate our children? How would we appreciate everything, the home that we have, the chairs, the furniture, everything that we have is so much more content and so much more meaning. I'll give you just a tiny little example to this. I like learning the teachings of Rabbi Levi Yitzchak. Actually, the shir I gave on the Tuesday that I mentioned before is a short little passage of Rabbi Levi Yitzchak, the Rebbe's father. So he can take any story or any object that is mentioned about in the Mishnah, talking about a table, talking about a chair, talking about a chest, talking about a rope and whatever, how it becomes tamei and so on. And these things seem like just a physical story. And suddenly he goes and he unravels to you all the meaning of the spiritual Kabbalistic ideas behind this rope, and behind this rope being knotted in 3 knots, what it means and what's its godly content and so on and so forth. And suddenly, wow, you stand in awe from that little thing. Imagine if you can appreciate the significance of the furniture in your house and your dinette and your how many forks you have and the spoon and the knives that you have, and why they're this color and why like everything has so much. You're living in a magical world of godly meaning. Everything, every significance of every moment, of every object, of every phenomenon, everything you know, everything you're connected to is like a million times more meaningful. It's just that now everything is constricted and everything is blocked. And when those blockages go away, which means the Aleph is revealed, suddenly there is a gush, a powerful, powerful gush of enrichment in all of existence. And of course, in every episode, and every encounter, and every small little 2-minute conversation that you had with someone, when you understand and appreciate what the dynamics of your two souls are. Who are you? What is the other person? Why do you have to meet this person exactly on this day and in this place? And what kind of energy exchange you had when you met that individual? I once had this silly thought. I don't know, it's coming to me. It's flooding to me right now while I'm sitting here. I didn't prepare this, but it's coming to me. I remember I was once during Kinnes HaShluchim, during the time of the Kinnes HaShluchim, in Crown Heights. I was in 770. 770 is like, especially when a crowded Shabbos like that, when thousands of people file in, you're suddenly like in a sea of people, and people you don't know. I haven't been born and bred in Lubavitch, so I didn't go to school there. I don't have that many acquaintances as other people do. So sometimes I feel a little isolated and like a little bit of an outsider. And I'm there with my Streimel, they're all with their hats. I feel a little different. But I had this like thought that was really cool. And I was thinking that, when they have this idea on a phone, when a phone touches another phone, they're able to do it. I mean, today we don't do it so much because you have other ways where you can like click one phone against the other one and it transmits a transmission of information. You can transmit a file by just clicking it. So I said to myself, wow, isn't it amazing? I have no idea why I have to be in this mush over here and I have to bump into all these people. But I'm sure that they're transmitting of their energy, of their neshama, into my neshama by just banging right at me. This one banging, shoving me this way, shoving me back. I'm thinking I have no idea who these people are and why I'm exchanging energy with them. Obviously, if there's a physical connection, that it's so much so, especially as we're going to learn now in the Maimer, how powerful the physical body is, and that you actually connected, you said you shook someone's hand and so on and so forth. There is a powerful exchange. There is deep spiritual meaning. They say that the Rebbe's father, when he would go to a Farbrengen, he would sit down and he can spend half the Farbrengen explaining why this Farbrengen is happening on this particular day, for this particular birthday, why we're sitting in this order, on this particular date, in this particular year, why this person is sitting to the right of this person and to the left of the other person, all according to Kabbalah. And I'm sure if you gave him enough time, he can speak exactly why there's corn chips on the table. And I mean, everything has meaning. Nothing is stam. And everything is divine. Our world is a little miniature world of incredible godliness. It's just that we miss it because we're living in constricted mode. And that's the idea of Goyla, Megala, the Aleph. And therefore there's no reason to be intimidated by the Geula, the Rebbe says, because why in the world would we want to experience something so limited and not to experience the true depth and richness of our relationships? That was the idea that we spoke about last week. Pretty awesome. Now we're going to continue on. And the Rebbe says, okay, so I understand how the inyan of Geula is that it redeems the Golus. It's not a new reality, it redeems the Golus. Rebbe, however, asks, is that all that Geula has to offer? Is Geula only, I'm starting Sif Perik Dalet, is that all that Geula has to offer? Doesn't Geula have something more to bring to the experience, more than just taking the things that we've had in Golus, enriching them, empowering them, enlivening them? Especially since we know, and we would think that Geula is going to bring some new stuff as well. And the truth is, based on a famous idea that the Rebbe already establishes in other sichos, that there are two tkufas in Yemoisa Mashiach. Because from the Rambam, it seems to imply that when Mashiach will come, Olam kimenhagei noyeg, the world will not change. It'll be the same world. Rambam is insistent on that. Don't think al yal al adas that Mashiach has to make miracles or that the world will be totally transformed. But it will be the same world, same reality. That's what the Rambam says. So the Rebbe asks, how can you say that? There's Beferish Chazals that very clearly speak of certain magical things that are going to happen after Mashiach comes. In addition to that, we have especially the miracle, the great, great miracle of Tchias HaMesim. And the Rebbe says, Ein lach shinui miminhagei shel olam gadol mizeh. You don't have a change of the conduct of the world. More than that, that all the dead are going to come alive. So sure, how can the Rambam say that after Yemosei Mashiach there won't be any changes? So based on that, the Rebbe establishes a very interesting idea that there are two tkufas in Yemosei Mashiach, stage number 1 and stage number 2. So stage number 1 is a natural world that is liberated. Stage number 2 is a whole new, incredible transformation in all of existence, where nature, where the world rises beyond the natural order, into some higher magical world, as I mentioned. If that's the case, the Rebbe says, Geula, l'chura, it includes that stage as well, 2 stages in Geula. So now, if we're saying that the reason why Geula is called Geula, because the main idea of Geula is not something new, but just to redeem the Golos, I understand that's the first stage of Geula. But since there's also going to be a second stage of Geula, why is that stage called Geula? Why, meaning with the same letters of Geula? Why don't we, at that point at least, give it some other name? Because at that point we're going to forget the Geula reality and move into something completely new and much higher. So therefore, the Rebbe derives from this. From this, it's understood that the entire Geula, no matter how far we will go, no matter how high we will go, even in a gazillion years of the highest elevations and transformative states, no matter how far we're going to go, it's always going to be connected to the present reality. That is so awesome. That is so crazy, because that shows us how, I know I have to live, and I know there are many women who are on this, join this class, that probably live in the same dilemma like me, and I would imagine some women much more than that. Since I've gotten involved in pushing for Mashiach, sometimes life becomes so unbearable in that, even though I'm excited to watch cool things happening, but you become so frustrated with why? Like you in a sense, you so dislike the present. And it's a danger, because it can chas v'shalom impede your happiness. You're happy because Mashiach is coming, but you can get so intensely frustrated and heartbroken by the fact that it's taking so long, and you become so miserable with this existence because you're so much awaiting for another existence. And that's no good. We're not supposed to be bitter. We're supposed to be happily enthused Chassidim that do their avodah with joy. And that requires an appreciation, not just for what will be tomorrow, but for today. And I think over here, there's a key that Rebbe is teaching us something amazingly important. That no matter how much the world will change, at any, and no matter how high it will go, it will never ever disconnect from the world that it is. That means, what does that mean? Even though we are saying it's going to be a shinoi, the world is going to transform. That shinoi that's going to come about is a derivative, no matter how high, that great, highest, deepest, greatest experience is a derivative from the here and the now, from time and space existence, and not just of time and space existence after Mashiach comes, but a derivative of time and space existence in its constricted Gullus state. The world that we are living in now is responsible for that incredible revelation that's going to be then. And now, this is the next point is also just as significant. Not only that it's feeding off, not only that all the giluyim, all the revelations, all that unbelievable light that's going to be then is feeding off the here and the now, but even deeper than that, once we achieve and we touch that incredible, whatever that is, we're going to see in a moment, that too is retroactively going to bring the here and the now and uplift it to there. In other words, we're never going to be severed from the here and the now. The future is accessed through the here and the now, and because it's accessed through the here and the now, the future is going to elevate the here and the now. So we're always going to be attached to our physical bodies and our physical relationships and our spouses and families and world that we know. So we need to cherish the world that we know. And when we cherish it, we have to realize that it's so important that we do our work with this present world that we have here and now. So the Rebbe says, how does that work? So in Sif Hey, he begins to explain it based on something that it says this week in Pirkei Avos. Even though in general, the Parsha Achrei this week is Emor, and this Sicha was said in Achrei Kedoshim, but the Pirkei Avos does come out accordingly, unlike it was in the year of Non Aleph, where we were already going to learn Perek Shlishi this week. This year we're learning Perek Shlishi only in Emor, so it fits with this explanation. In Perek Shlishi in Pirkei Avos it says, Histakel b'shloisha dvarim, look at three things, ve'einat abali de arveira. This is the first mission in Pirkei in the third chapter. Look at three things, you won't come to a sin. And what are those three things? An eye sees, ayin roya, oizen shamas, b'chol masacha, I think that's what it is. Is it Maayon basa, or is that, I'm not sure. Okay, I'm not going to do that right. I'm trying to figure out, because the Rebbe doesn't even go into what the three things are. I don't remember if the three things, no, sorry. He does bring it here, sorry. It is, it's not the ayin roya, that's a different thing. Da me'ayin basa, the three things you should look at and won't be able to come to sin, is you should know from where you come, and where you're going to, know your origins, know where you're heading to, and in front of who you're going to give a din v'cheshbon. Those are the three things that I mentioned. So the Rebbe asks a question, a simple question. Why does the Mishnah have to b'chlal give you a number? The Mishnah could have just said, histakel me'ayin basa. Look, deeply think about, and visualize where you come from, where you're heading to, and whom you're going to give a judgment for, an accounting and judgment for, and you won't come to sin. I mean, it's not too hard to figure out that it's three. If you want to count, you can count. If you don't want to count, don't count. The Mishnah in general is the Mishnah is written b'derech ketzara. Rabbi HaKadosh wrote the Mishnah in a very concise way. So why does he have to tell you three things? Why does he have to give you a number? So therefore, everything, because the Rebbe is so medayik, the Rebbe says, no. There is a lesson over here. That means when the Mishnah says, look at three things, you won't come to a sin, that part of the Mishnah stands independently than the three things that it mentions later. Because if it would be these three, what the Mishnah means by look at three things and you won't sin, that the Mishnah means the following words that it's going to see later, then the Mishnah should have just gone to that message. Didn't have to tell you about three things. So it must be that there is an independent message in this itself when it says, look at three things and you won't sin. So what is it that the Mishnah is saying, look at three things that you won't sin? The Rebbe says, the etzem inyan, that a Yid should realize, be conscious of three, that we're living in a world of three. That's important. When you're aware of the three, that itself will keep you from sinning. Then there's an addition, where that later translates into a more particularized message. But first of all, just the awareness that there are three. So when you tell a Jew, there are three, what can they be? Three most important things to you. So obviously the most important thing to a Jew is the Eibishter. There is God. That's the most important. Then you can't ignore yourself. I mean, if it's about you sinning, about your life, so then you have to realize there's also you. So there's you and God. Oh, that's very important. If you realize there's you and God, and the emesis, if it would say, well, you would think and say, okay, so say there's two things. I can think of these two things. Nothing else matters. The ganze Welt doesn't make a difference. It's me and the Eibishter. If I realize that there is God, and He created me, and I'm accountable to Him, so then what else? Then nothing can distract me. Nothing can distract me. So we're saying that's not good. Just to think that because if you're thinking there's you and God, you and the Eibishter, then you think, okay, so what's my obligation to Hashem? What's my obligation? So now I'm not getting distracted, not by lunch, and not by bills that I have to pay, and not by insults that I feel, or what other people will think about me. I know one thing, there's me and the Eibishter, and I have my obligations to Him, and this is it. And then when a Yid can stakel, imagine if you stop. It's amazing how much we would accomplish if we would stop just for a moment to think. So imagine if we just stopped every morning and thought about this for 3 minutes. There's God and there's me. There's an Eibishter and there's me. There's an Eibishter who's looking down at me. That's what we were told that we should think about every day. Perik Memalav, Hine Hashem Oimed, right? The Eibishter is Nitzavol. Hine Hashem Nitzavol, the Eibishter is standing over him, and He's looking down at you every second. So that's it. The Rebbe says, no. The Mishnah is teaching you that that's not good enough. That necessarily, maybe you won't sin, but it's not going to take away the possibility of sinning. To take away even the possibility of sin, you have to add, your contemplation has to include a third thing, which is pivotal and important. And what's the pivotal and important element that you have to think about? That there is you, there is God, and there is a world. So, hold it. If I'm thinking that there is a world, then I'm inviting trouble. I'm inviting all the stuff that actually do cause me to sin. I'm thinking that there's a world. And what does it mean there's a world? A world full of temptation, a world full of stuff, including things that are not holy and not godly. And that's the problem. That seems to be the source of sin. How can you say that that's going to cause that I'm not going to sin? And the answer to that is that since the Eibishter's desire and the Eibishter's purpose in creating you, before there was once a time there was only Hashem. And why do you exist? You exist not only because the Eibishter wanted you. You exist because the Eibishter had in mind a third thing. And what's the third thing? God had a desire to have a home in the lowest of existence, the lowest possible realm. And because the Eibishter had a desire, Nisava, to have a home in this world, it is for that reason that the Eibishter brought me into existence, and you into existence, and all of us into existence. And therefore, I cannot banish the world from my mind. I have to include the world in my contemplation. And I have to think about there is the Eibishter, and there is me, and then there is the world, and my impact in the world to facilitate God's desire in creating me and creating the world. And that is of major, 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 major importance. I must recognize that there is also a world and that I have to have influence in the world. How do I have influence in the world? I have influence in the world by influencing first my body. and that making my body be consistent with the Eibishter's will. I can't ignore my body. I must think about my body, which includes I have to make sure I have a healthy body. I can't say it's just important that I put on tefillin and daven and do mitzvahs. No, I must remember I have a body, and I need to take care of that body and make sure I have a healthy body serving the Eibishter, consistent with serving God, so that the body should be able to serve Hashem. So I need to take care of my body. I need to take care of my home. My home is important. I can't leave my home just a wreck and a mess and then I'm just busy doing holy things. No, I have to take care of my home. And being that my home is a place that's God's home, because the Eibishter wants to have a home in my place, I'm sure God wants to live in a nice place. I have to make sure my home is nice. And I have to do whatever I can to make sure to the best of my abilities I have a nice home. Well decorated, taken care of, clean. I have to take care of it. Take care of myself, my body, take care of my home. Organize things so that the Eibishter can feel, it's beautiful. We're going to see later, he doesn't say it over here, but he says it later in the thing that physical beauty and aesthetics are important, because the Eibishter wants, in his relationship with us, the Eibishter wants to have a home in this world, and that includes what is nice in the Gashmiistic world. It has to be nice. It has to include the material of the world. That too is part of the shidduch, part of the project. That Hashem wants to have a home in this world. And how does a yid make? But the most important thing is not just that everything is nice. The most important thing is that the things in this world are purified and they're refined, and they're accordance to the Eibishter's will. So for that, we need to do the avodah of Torah and mitzvahs. The avodah of Torah and mitzvahs purify the world, purify the body. For instance, the Rebbe says, give an example. When a yid gives tzedakah, so what is he doing? This is the essential ideas of Tanya. What he's doing is he's taking of his or her possessions that they toiled and sweated physically, as you did physical labor, and you created that money. So that money is part of the physical world. And then you take that money and do a mitzvah with it. You fulfill what the Eibishter wants with it. Through this, you made the world into a keli for a lukus, into a keli for the Eibishter, into a residence for the Eibishter. And so that's all the mitzvahs. Because we're including the world in this. And we're going to see soon what the chiddush is. It seems like, what's the chiddush? Okay, yeah, of course. If I'm serving, my obligations to Hashem include serving Him, and I have to do mitzvahs. But there's two ways of doing mitzvahs. There's a way of doing mitzvahs where it's all about you doing what the Eibishter wants. You don't care about the world. You don't care about your environment. You don't care about the reality outside of just your neshama and the Eibishter. That's wrong. That's not the way the Eibishter wants you to conduct your life. You need to conduct your life in a way. The more impact you have on your environment and your space, which is, the more you include your body, the more you include your home, the more you include people around you, the more you include your community, the more you include your neighborhood, the more you include the Gentiles who live there, the more involvement you have with the world, the more pieces of world become aligned and connected to the Eibishter's will. That's the Eibishter's desire. That's what we mean over here. You have to feel responsible for the world, not responsible just for yourself, to be a good person. It's a responsibility. A person can say, I should understand. The Rebbe's chiddush over here. Let me explain the chiddush, which I think is the chiddush. There were philosophies, there were attitudes in Yiddishkeit where your main thing in life is to acquire as much wisdom as you can. Of course, you have to be mevatel Torah to do a mitzvah, but your main inyan is just Torah and knowledge and knowing the Eibishter in the highest. And I'm not saying it's a shitta. Even the Rambam is mashma that way, that the Rambam lived more his life. This is before Chassidus. So it was more about, yes, you attain knowledge so that you can come to Olam Haba. That's not so much as the Rebbe's Pirush over here, Istakel B'Shlosh Dvarim, is a Chassidish Pirush. It's based on Chassidus. Now, once it's based on Chassidus, the Rebbe is going to derive it from Rambam as well, in many sikhs. But I'm saying, if you learn pure, dry Rambam, you'll come to that conclusion. The Rambam says it's not about, it's all, main thing is that you acquire knowledge and you connect to God and you'll have the ultimate experience of connection. And the Rebbe says, beferish not, that's not the avodah. This is Chassidus reveals, no, the Eibishter cherishes the world. And now the Eibishter wants a world, and therefore our main objective has to be not just knowledge for, of course we have to learn, because the more knowledge we have, the more we can transmit that to the world as well, and teach the world, and educate the world, and make the world a godly place. We're responsible for everything in this world, the physical materials of the world, and humanity at large, and beyond humanity, everything in this world. The Eibishter wants to have a home in this world. And this is so important, the Rebbe says. It's so important, this piece. The third thing, which is the world, is so negeya that it's negeya, the Rebbe says. It's not only negeya for the world, if you don't fix the world will be lacking. It's negeya to you, to your neshama, to your soul, and it's also negeya to the Eibishter. It's kiviyachol that if he doesn't get it, there's something lacking in him. Gewalt, yeah, something lacking, yeah, because nisava. Because the Eibishter had a taiva. And when you have a taiva and your taiva is not realized, it's lacking in you. So the Eibishter had a taiva, the Eibishter chose to make himself that taiva. But once he chose to make himself voluntarily that taiva, he has that taiva, he has that desire. And not having this is lacking in him. And therefore making this dir is in a sense completing God, and it's completing us, of course, because as it says in Tanya, v'zeh kol adam. This is the entire person. This is what you're all about. So if you don't fulfill this, there's a lack in you. You can't say, oh, I reached chachma, I reached knowledge, I have so much, I'm going to have a lichtige Gan Eden. Very good. But your main inyan of being an adam, of being a human being, is to influence the world around you. Now, this is so pivotal and so important. Now, what did the Eibishter do? The Eibishter went. And, in other words, because this is so essential for ultimate realization, for the neshama and for the Eibishter, for God and for man, that the Eibishter took the biggest risk, the Rebbe says. Because neshamas were in a very, very, very high, beautiful, attached state, where they were marinating in godliness, in pure holiness. So attached, so unified, in a state of ecstasy and bliss and attachment. And the Eibishter took these neshamas and ripped them away, sadly, so to speak, from their place, and sent the neshama down through a very, very, on a very distant journey, and lowering through the various different dimensions, lower and lower, till the Eibishter puts the neshama into a body. And God is taking such a big risk by putting the neshama into a body. What's the risk? When the neshama goes into a body, it's possible that it will become corrupted. The world will corrupt. How much do we struggle? How many mistakes do we make? How many times do we sit down and we give a big krechts, like I just did before, about our pathetic state of observance and connection? How many minutes do we live in our life? Think about it. How many moments, how many minutes, how many seconds, how many minutes, how many hours do we live and we're totally disconnected from truth, from reality, from what's emes, what's real, because we're the body, because the body needs to relax, because the body needs to whatever, and the body has its own mishagas. And how many times do we fall in and to do things that we shouldn't be doing, and think thoughts we shouldn't think, and say things or whatever? Not be so nice to our spouse, and not be so whatever. How many times do we maybe forget to say a bracha, b'kavana at least, and maybe murmur it, and we keep on messing up so many times. And then sadly think about all the Jews that are not at least privileged at this point yet to live a life of Torah mitzvahs. Or how about how many children in today's from nice, good Jewish families and from families and shluchim families and all this are suffering with addiction, suffering with things they can't get out of. Deep, painful, whatever. People are in such horror and pain. And the Eibishter knew all the risks that he's taking. Obviously, everybody's going to come to their shleimus. But meanwhile, for the time being, that's so horrible for so many. And yet the Eibishter knew it was worth it to put a neshama through the ringer and all this, because when the neshama will manage, and we all to some degree do manage it, because in the little pieces of life that we are doing the right thing, when we are getting our bodies to participate, when we are influencing the world around us, when we are impacting people, when we are shining light, when we are purifying and refining the world bit by bit, little crumbs at a time, it is of such unbelievable significance and value, and it's uncovering in the Eibishter a dimension of Eibishter that is just not tapped, kiviyachol, so to speak. Even in the Orein Seif, it wasn't tapped. That's called Atzmos. It's the Gilui of Atzmos. Atzmos itself expresses itself only when we reveal him b'toich gashmiyas ha'olam, in the physical, material aspects of the world. And that is so super, super, super unbelievable, intensely great, that everything that we have to endure to get there, including all the obstacles and all the slips and falls and darkness and unbearable pain and darkness and suffering, all of that is worth it for that revelation. And the Rebbe says the Eibishter, he should have, I missed a few powerful lines. The Rebbe says the Eibishter is Etzem HaToiv. He's the essence of goodness. So really he should have put, God creates us and Hashem wants to be nice to us and do something wonderful for us, Hashem should have put us into a state of continuous aliyah. Only elevation, elevation, and elevation, 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 elevation. Going higher and higher and higher and higher. Why did God put us through this state of coming into the world where we have falling and all kinds of mishaps and so on and so forth? And yet, the Hashem does that. So you have to say that this is the ultimate kindness. This is a kindness. This is an inconceivable kindness. And what's the kindness? Because Dafka ba'olam hazeh hagashmi, in the material physical world, is when we make contact with the Eibishter's essence that is just inaccessible, no matter in which realm, no matter how high the neshama would soar in its connection to God before it comes into a body, it won't even come close. It doesn't even come one iota into the range of Atzmos. Dafka down here, the neshama achieves two things, and here's very important. The Rebbe says two things. Number one, the neshama achieves that it reveals its source, the neshama's own source. Because of the struggles and the gashmias in the material world, it forces the soul to tap into the deepest essence of the soul. That's number one. But then even greater than that, not that the world forces the soul to go deeper in itself so that it can remain a Jew and connected to God, but the very mitzvah that the neshama does with the physical body and the material and the gashmias of the world, that in the material itself is where Atzmos is revealed, and then from the gashmias material physical world, the gilui of Atzmos is transmitted to the neshama as well, which is way beyond even the shirish of our neshama. As high as our soul is, it's not mushrash in the essence of Atzmos. It really is, but it can never ever realize that shirish only through the material of the world, which contributes to the neshama, that gilui of essence of the Eibishter, and for that everything was worth it. Based on this, and then once that is revealed, it's ein ataba lidei avera. You won't come to a lidei avera. So again, that's the meaning. Look at three things you won't come. As long as you're focusing on two things, only you and God and you being connected, you might not do an avera, but it's not possible. Only through this gilui of Atzmos, a Yid reveals how he and the Eibishter are totally one, and it's not possible to come to the Avera. That's going to be when Mashiach will come. It won't be possible to do an Avera. But it comes dafka through engaging that which is the most averable, that which makes us most susceptible to sin, and that's our bodies, physical world, and so on and so forth. So now let's bring it back to Goyla and Geula. Therefore, the Rebbe says, since the whole project of creation, which includes Yemoisa Mashiach, and which includes Tchias HaMesim, and which includes Elef HaShvi, the 7th millennium, and which includes all the Yoivolos and all the revelations that are going to happen future, higher and higher and higher. What is it all? It's all a journey into God, into the deeper revelation of God. Some of those journeys will take us into revelations that will cause changes in the material, physical world. That's true. But why are we accessing Atzmos? From how are we accessing that, the Gilui of the essence of God? We're accessing it via and through the material, the Gashmias of this world. And when we say, why? Because the Sava Kodesh Baruch Hu liyas lo dira b'tachtainim, the Eibishter wanted to have a dwelling place in the world. But I forgot one very pivotal point that we'll conclude with this. The Eibishter wants to have a home in the world, in the low world, what's called a low world. A low world is not the world in Mashiach. The low world is the world with, as we experience it today. That's the low world. The low world is the world with all of its upsets, all of its frustrations, all of its aches and pains, all of its limitations, all of its darkness, all of its even sinfulness, all of the temptations, all the addictions, everything. Everything you can write on a paper as negative and dark and so on and so forth. That's the Gashmistika world. And that lowly Gashmistika world with all that potential of pain and suffering, that world the Eibishter wants us to do a mitzvah in and lift it up in its lowest, as it is in its lowest state, and dafka then are we touching Atzmos. So what does that mean? That means that whenever there is going to be a revelation in the deepest moments of Mashiach, in the highest, in a gazillion years from now, in a trillion gazillion years from now, when we're going to be experiencing deeper revelations in Atzmos itself, so whatever shaykh to be higher and higher and higher, why are we accessing Atzmos, and through what? Through the avodah in this world. And it's connected dafka to the Gashmias and the darkest challenges and deep and difficulties in this world. That's where we're tapping in Atzmos. That's going to be revealed then. And that's also the reason why the ultimate achievement and the ultimate state is going to be Neshama's beguf, because it's the guf that will forever be bringing us the experiences. It's from the guf that will come every single giloi, every single experience. So even if the nature of the world will change, it will still be deriving and generating, being generated from the times that we're standing right now, Erev Mashiach, moments before Mashiach. And so what's going to happen? So when Mashiach will come, we will never forget these moments. We will never lose the connection to these things. That means we will always be attached to this. We will see its depth, its meaning, so it won't be a source of aggravation of pain. It will be a source of pleasure and infinite delight. But we will always have it. It will always be there. Stakel b'shleisha dvar. 3 things. Goyla, the Geula will always be attached to Goyla. And that is so phenomenal. So important. It gives you the ability to cherish the now, yet breathlessly await for the future when you can appreciate the now. What a brilliant idea. How unbelievably true and exciting this is. So the Eibush to help that we should. So I want to just conclude. I mentioned earlier about aesthetics and doing things beautiful. The Rebbe concludes in the Sikha, doesn't conclude, we're not close to finishing it yet. But the Rebbe there says that you see this idea in Parshas Achrei is that the Kohen Gadol went into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the Holy of Holies. But yet when he went in, he had to wear big day kahuna. And Kohanim in general had to wear beautiful clothing. The Rebbe says you're involved in holiness. Who cares about your clothing? It's not the most chitzoniistic thing. B'chlal, you have my Marim and the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe says a person that cares about his clothing is the ultimate yesh. How could you be involved in your clothing? So that demands a person should be about, and that's true. You have to be totally devoted to Elokus. But the Rebbe, because the Rebbe is the last one, Malchus, and already bringing us into Yemaisa Mashiach, brings it back to Gashmias. The Rebbe says no. The Avodah and the Kodesh HaKadoshim has to be with physical, beautiful clothing that people on the street say it's beautiful. It has to be nice in the physical world, because ultimately the physical, material, Gashmiistic world is one with Atzmos Mamash. So when you're making things, for example, in your Chabad house, you're making an event, don't think it's just, your own thing to make it beautiful. To make your flyer beautiful, your advertisement beautiful, make the event beautiful, the laying out of the food beautiful. Everything needs to be beautiful. in the material Gashmistic world. You bring the world into the godly experience of Mashiach, and only then it's Mashiach, and only then is it Geula. So may we merit to have the wisdom and the understanding to take care of ourselves, to take care of our families, of our children, and to cherish everything that we have and make it as beautiful, consistent with what the Eibishter wants us to do with everything in the world. Like this, we reveal Atzmos with the only place to reveal Atzmos in the Gashmis of the world. All the best, everyone. Be'ezus Hashem, we'll reconnect next week, Wednesday night. No, next week, Wednesday night, I'm having a Lag Boimer event, so we're going to have to make the shir probably on Tuesday, so tune in. Be'ezus Hashem. Hopefully you're ready in Yerushalayim.